I'm really excited because today I am in conversation with a world champion. And not only that, she is also an ethical business coach. Now, you might sit there and think, or you might be doing whatever, and you'll be listening to us and thinking, how on earth does that square up? So that's what we're going to find out. I'm here today with the wonderful Kate Strong. Kate, thank you so much for being here today.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, Christoph.
So is there any way of putting in a nutshell, and we have plenty of time to kind of go into more detail later on, but in a nutshell, how they do square up, world champion and ethical business coach?
I think they fit perfectly in the sense that for me to strive to make the world a better place, I needed to make sure my life was playing a bigger game away from the current vibrations of what caused the problems. So when I step up in life, I find different solutions available for businesses to become more sustainable and ethical in their own practice as well. Is that short enough for you?
Yeah. And so it's probably entirely driven by your own motivation to literally create a better life for yourself. And from that experience, you want others to have the same. Is that fair?
I think so, yes. I'm embracing the selfish aspect of what you just said, in that for me to be centered and balanced, I need to put me first. But when I do that, I have a greater capacity to serve more people as well. So I am embracing that I come first on my list now.
I'm smiling because I love how you get straight to the point. I need to put myself first. And I think we can extend an invitation to the listeners, or the viewers for that matter, because it's hard, isn't it, for people, especially if you are, and I'm going to make a sweeping assumption that many people listening to this kind of recording are givers, empaths, people pleasers, and so forth, coming from the right angle, but struggling sometimes with saying, I need to put myself first. Why do you think that is such a challenge?
I think society doesn't reward people who put themselves first. We may say we are, because we have the one or two success stories of the 10x world and the financially successful people, the outwardly facing successful people. Yet on a day-to-day basis, we reward the giver. We actually condone that behavior, and anyone who does do something for themselves purely motivated by me, we inwardly curse them. So it might even be an unconscious bias, but we are trained that in school. Think of others, not yourself. Don't be so selfish. It's a common pattern around the dinner table at home, around, as I said, school teachers, and in daily operation in work as well.
Absolutely. And I think if I can just kind of join you in this, I think there are some severe consequences if we don't sometimes put ourselves first, because we can burn out if we don't top up our own energy supplies mentally. I'm thinking spiritually as well, because what do we give to others if we haven't got it in the first place? So I think that the consequences can be quite severe.
I completely agree. And if it's okay with you, I can share part of the motivation of me becoming world champion in triathlon was from me giving too much. That I was a shell of, I wasn't Kate Strong that you see today, because I wasn't complete. I'd given so much of me that I'd become the person people wanted me to be. So I would turn up, Kate Strong version for friends, Kate Strong version for work, Kate Strong version for partner. And I didn't know who I was. So I was drifting in life because I was more focused on playing different roles for different acts, rather than just being authentically Kate for everyone. And I was with a guy at the time, and we were drifting. Our relationship at the beginning wasn't toxic or unhealthy. It was okay. But I was so adamant in pleasing him and pleasing societal needs of what was expected of a female at mid-20s. I'd forgotten what I really wanted and who I was. So only after 9 years of being with him, me drifting, not knowing who I was, we got into quite a toxic scenario, because I didn't know my own boundaries. I was allowing him to say and to do things to me that today I would be absolutely no. But back then I was allowing it, and so it was at that point of 9 years into our relationship, 6 days before our wedding, that I knew that this had to stop. I couldn't commit to a future of this. So that was my cliff edge moment of waking up going, I have to do things for me. And the first thing I said was no to that wedding. And it was a huge leap of faith that, you know, I threw myself off that metaphorical cliff, not knowing how I cope. But I had to have faith that I'd find myself and grow myself wings before I hit the bottom, that I was heading that way anyway. So yeah, I think there are huge, as you said, repercussions individually for those type of moments when we find ourselves in that toxic relationship or in a tragic job where we're just miserable. But we give less to the world. We're not shining. We don't inspire other people. We get at home, we want to switch off. We're looking for ways to disconnect. When we are authentically ourselves, we want to connect. We want to reach out and have these conversations like you and me today, because we were really excited to talk time and time again about what we're doing, because we're so excited. That is true authenticity. That is selfish life. And that is really what the world needs more of.
So 3 things I want to say. The first one is thank you for sharing that personal anecdote, which is foundational to your current career, I would say.
Yeah.
Second, and this is something that I don't see how you would know it about me unless you've been to any of my talks, but I don't think you have. 6 months before I was due to get married to my then childhood sweetheart, I ended that chapter because I was gay and I had to come out, and we kind of both knew it, but we had a tremendous amount of love for each other, so it was genuinely confusing. But I knew that I was wearing different hats to, like you said, to please different groups of people, to kind of meet certain criteria, and I too was going to and her by consequence, we would have both hit rock bottom at some point. So it was not easy. Of course it's not easy, but it's worth it. And that was one of my foundational kind of parts to my current career. And then thirdly, I think that because at one point you mentioned I was in my mid-20s and I was trying to please everyone, etc. I had roles to play, I had hats to wear. That's something that's not exactly age specific, is it?
No.
As in, many people are still in that uncomfortable situation. So maybe by listening to your story and my story, they think, actually, I'm wearing a few too many hats. Maybe I should consolidate through being more intact, or by being more, authentic.
Yeah. I mentioned my age because as a female, we do have that biological pressure that people, I knew from an early age I didn't want children. So around the age of 12, I made a decision that we were overpopulated. I did not want to contribute. And if I wanted to love a child, I would adopt or foster or do it a different way. But I did not need to have them connected through blood. So, but at 25, I was even considering having children because of the pressure of society. As a female, we should be wanting this. And there was something wrong fundamentally as a woman if I didn't want to procreate. So you are right, it is applicable to every age. And even now at 41, I'm noticing sometimes I follow the path of least resistance, and I'm doing things that I, using the words in brackets, should be doing, yet knowing it's pulling me away from my true self. So it's happening everywhere. I'm just more aware of it and stop it before I go too deep or too far down that path.
Awareness is always the first step to the next step, isn't it? That's how I put it. So how do you maintain that level of awareness throughout your everyday life? Because you are a very lovely and giving person. How do you keep yourself in check?
It's a very good question. If I find myself looking outside, using externals as a motivator or a blame or reasons or justifications to not be doing or doing something, it's usually a sign that the power is outside of myself. So I do my best to always bring it back to me. Again, that selfish vein running through this conversation again. why am I giving someone else control, or the success as well as the problems that I could be carrying? So that's something I always do as a point of reflection. Where am I within this sphere that I'm now passing the power outside of myself? And I think it's over a long period of time. We're talking, I've been doing this daily for 10 years now. So something that I found really helpful at the beginning was a gratitude journal, but also acknowledgement. What can I acknowledge myself for as much as well? Yay!
Yay! The gratitude journal is so important. Sorry, carry on. You acknowledge.
I acknowledge myself as well. So I give outwardly thanks for things I have in my life, or I'm grateful for. But then I also give myself acknowledgements. What today did I do that impressed me? It doesn't have to be something like winning a championship or doing something big. It could be, some mornings is I got out of bed on my first alarm clock. We need to acknowledge the big mountains in our lives, regardless of their size.
So you have a good internal compass, as well as a great set of skills and behaviors to help you with keeping yourself in check. Is that fair?
I'd like to say yes. And I make sure if I get feedback that contradicts that sentence, that statement, then I review it and see if it is valid and how else could I turn up elsewise. So yes, but I'm sure there are people you could find that would say no, but that's the beauty of life. We all have an opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing is subjective. And when it comes to accomplishments and wins and mountains and pitfalls, it's entirely personal, isn't it? Maybe there's a fourth thing you don't know about me. I like to ask people tricky questions, so here we go. Have there been times where you learned something new about yourself, in that actually I did follow my inner compass and it turned out better than I expected or worse than I expected? In other words, my compass was a little bit off.
As in, I followed my compass, but I got something greater than I could ever imagine. Yeah, regularly. I think I love to have, I love to keep things fluid. I love to let nature or the world deliver what I need rather than what I think I need. So, I mean, just one example, last year, my father has always had a lifelong dream of climbing Mont Blanc, which is 4,810 meters in the Alps, a mountain. And he turned 70 and thought his dream was over. So me being me, I suggested that maybe we could do it together. So I could be with him to support him morally, emotionally, and remind him that physically he can accomplish this. So last year, he was 71, we did that.
Amazing.
So standing on top of Mont Blanc, the world just opened up in front of me, and anyone who has been around dawn or dusk and in nature, we feel the power, the infinite power of this awesome being, but also our insignificance. So it's a sort of paradox of, everything and nothing in one moment. And I just burst into tears. And I decided to play a game, because friends were asking me afterwards, what are you doing afterwards? Even though that wasn't my goal, I thought I'd play the game of what could be possible. So I came up with a little bit of I'd love to, climb Everest one day. And I'd love to do some things for swimming, because I'm a triathlete at heart. I'd love to maybe swim the English Channel, one of the toughest channel crossings in the world. And maybe I'd love to do a crazy cycle as well. Maybe cycle across America. There's the world's toughest cycling races called Race Across America. What about doing that? And I said it. So that was my moral compass, was to find extremes. Now, what the world has delivered is I'm currently in negotiations with sponsors to do all three within 10 months. So in 2 years' time, I could be the world's first female to have ever done all three in the world. So that has been opened up, and that's obviously a very extreme case, but the world has delivered what I truly could have had if I hadn't have focused on doing each one individually. I just let the universe provide what it wanted.
Whoa. First of all, a great example, great answer to my question. Thank you for your honesty. I love how it can be an even better result than what we had in mind. And then right at the end, I mean, we'll come back to your amazing project that you're about to embark upon and training for. But you mentioned the word universe right at the end of your question, or of your answer better, is where does that's a word that not everybody would use. I mean, I love the word universe. Where does your spirituality come into all of this? And is there a spirituality that you cultivate?
Yes, very much so. I think looking back from my childhood, I was a very spiritual being, trying to be as human as possible because I always felt different and failing miserably. I always felt on the outside, or I always got a little bit wrong. I was picked for sports. People wouldn't have guessed I felt such an outsider, but I knew that I wasn't fitting in. I didn't have the pinups of the guys or girls on my wall like the normal people, and so I just knew I was a bit unique. But then my parents forced me to conform, and I willingly participated. So I studied engineering, which, as you can imagine, is the complete opposite side of the spectrum, where it's all about tolerances and numbers and proof. Yet inside of me, I felt alive by trusting my gut and my intuition. So coming back to that inner moral compass, listening to our intuition, I was actually getting higher results, higher proof. To simple examples, before an exam, I would just say, I think we need to study 0.5 on this book of 500 pages. I'd read it, and the question would be about 0.5. And it consistently happened that even my fellow students were saying, Kate, have you seen the exam before? This is getting quite this is uncanny how you're doing it. So we all have this gift if we choose to listen. And it's in the silence that this voice is the most powerful. It's when we're not trying to logicalize it or put ego. It's in the pause. It's in the breath between the words. That's where the magic happens. So I am actually a Reiki master, because the more I learn about this, the more I know I don't know. And I'm really enthralled in exploring the power we have in our breath, in our hands, and in connecting to you and me, and as I said, the universe. We are all connected. So what could be possible if we actually started to believe this, rather than just read it or watch The Secret or The Law of Attraction and go, oh, it works for some, but I don't want that elephant this week. If we actually truly put our passion into it, as we did learning how to look with our eyes, we started to see with our third eye.
And as a fellow Reiki master, I fully resonate with everything that you're saying. So I'd like to come back to the word. It's more than a word, isn't it? But the word silence. You are a very driven person. You're very busy. You like to keep busy. You like to keep active. How do you like to pursue your goals, your dreams, and you do. How do you cultivate moments of stillness? Or do you set time aside? Or is it something that is just an integral part of, is it a way of life, a way of being for you?
I would love to say yes to that it is just purely there, and I wake up in my little Zen bubble and I float around for the day. It's not the case. Mm-hmm. Something I have to cultivate, that some days I resist and I find any element of distraction, be it electrical or some other person, that I can busy myself in. So it's something that I'm deeply nurturing, but the more I practice it, the less the ties of the anchors of the getting busy hold me back. So they will never go away. My monkey brain, if we want to use the language of today, will always keep chattering, but I'm able to buy time. I'm not feeding it for the hours like I used to. I'm feeding it for the minutes or the seconds. Mm-hmm. So my chattering mind is always there. And it's interesting at the moment, because I'm going through quite a transition in a personal level. So I'm not sure if when this will go out live, but we've been in lockdown for 12 months, a global pandemic. And before that, I completely uprooted myself. So I was nomadic. I had no ties, I had no property. I decided to live in a car and travel the UK and potentially the world as well by following my inner compass. And then lockdown happens. Fortuitously, my partner invited me to move in with him, which is a gorgeous offering, and we're deeply connecting thanks to that. But it's a 2-bedroom flat with no garden. So to go from the free spirit of the world who lives in nature to a very small, after World War II build property, my habit also with somebody 24/7. So we're now working and living in the same building together. And this is very much more human and normal for most people. Those moments are fleeting and far between. So I suppose for me, I know I'm waffling a little bit, I do apologize, because it's still a journey of exploration. I don't set an hour to meditate. I don't set 2 hours to walk in nature. I'm grateful for a moment. It could be, as I said, that pause between cutting the onions and putting them in the frying pan. That's my moment. So I might have 2 or 10 of those micro moments, but it's just working that muscle so that if and when in the future I have that space and that freedom to be able to move and have the ability and privilege of being in nature for days on end, I will be so much more grateful for it and take advantage of it. So yeah, at the moment, my meditation is, as I said, between putting out the bins and locking the shed door, but it's still magical. It's still being human in that moment. So it's about rewarding every moment, I suppose, not waiting for that Zen.
That Satori moment, yeah. So I think that's a beautiful answer. And in a way, or in many ways, for me, that would be the essence of mindfulness. Is if you can set aside time, which I'm a believer in because it helps me to cultivate that practice, great. If you can be mindful throughout your day, even in those micro moments, they add up and you become more in control of your mind, you become more appreciative of what you're actually holding in your hands, you use your senses, you ground yourself by doing so. Because if you are paying attention to, you crack an egg in the pan and then you throw the shells away, mindfully, in those nanoseconds, you are not overthinking other shit that's going on in your life. You have a mindful experience by deploying your senses. So I think, I'm a big believer in that. Yeah. And it does add up. It really does. There are times where you then are called to really draw upon your mindfulness practice, and you sometimes positively astonish yourself just how far you have come and how much calmer you are in a certain situation, where the same situation where 5 years ago you would have had a panic attack, and now it's like, no, this is nothing. Does that make sense? Because that's kind of how it works for me.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, the analogy I give is bringing it back to sport. Or is we might go for that week intense boot camp where we kickstart our health and well-being and go on all those juices and get a personal trainer in the morning and night. But then it's the everyday that moves on for the remainder of the 52 weeks that actually builds the definition, the optimal health as well. So it's very similar.
I'm going to ask you another, I think it's only my second devil's advocate question. So sit tight, brace yourself. Many years ago, and in fact, I posted about this on social media last weekend because it was on a Sunday and I was in the garden and I was simply being. I took time out to just simply be. And it was amazing because I'm someone who likes to optimize and leverage every moment of every day because I love life and I think like no time to waste. So for me to sit still is a rare occurrence, but I'm getting better at it. Anyway, here's my thing. So 10 years ago, roughly, that was very different. I had so at the end of an 8-year relationship, selling the house, very busy in work, written and published 2 books. Life was really very busy. And I was actually really in a state of high performing anxiety. What I thought was all fantastic, that I was always on the go, always busy, was actually working to my detriment. And it led to a burnout. So lesson learned there. So you can probably guess where I'm going to go with this. Especially, and we see this in the world with professional athletes. How do you strike the balance between knowing that you're still in it for the sheer raw passion and proving something to yourself as well? How do you strike that balance? And I hope that's not a rude question to ask. It comes from the right intention.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate it's from the right, where it's coming from. And I think it's important to ask. I think it's a dance. A lot of people, like if you imagine the yin and yang symbol, a lot of us really have to stay in one section all the time, and the other side is bad somehow. But the beauty of life is to walk the fine line with both our feet in both camps. So for me, it's about embracing that some days I might be doing it as a motivation of proving to myself I can, and embracing the ego, because ego isn't bad. It's needed for us, it's part of us, and I love it. All the time, it's not good. And the same, the selflessness, the passion to inspire others. It's a beautiful way to keep motivated, but it won't put food on the table. So, and it will keep me in air. It will keep me, my feet won't be grounded as much. So I might not actually achieve what I need to. So again, that selflessness is beautiful and joyous, but it's not good all the time either. So I do swing between the two. I'm just mindful of what's driving me for the time being, and if it's there progressively for a period of time. So, in triathlon, when I was striving to be the best, because I publicly announced that I wanted to be a world champion, a lot of people thought that was to prove to my ex, like, screw you, look what you missed out on. But the attitude was to be my best. So it was very selfless, without the glass ceiling of capping my capacity or limits. But it was a reminder to myself. So that mantra of being my best, not the best, has definitely stayed with me throughout that.
That's probably for me, this is the highlight of our conversation today. And I'm actually writing it down as we speak, being my best, not the best. I suppose the main reason I ask is because many people come to my content and your content to be inspired and to have something that in those moments they can't quite generate for themselves, in the same way that I and maybe yourself, we go to people we look up to and get some energy from there. And but I can't, nor do I always want to, follow in the exact same footsteps as my idols is a big word, but the people I look up to. So sometimes I think, especially in the world of personal development, I see, there's a big sigh coming through me as I'm saying this, because I know it from experience. There are many people who are doing things for, in my humble opinion, for the wrong reasons. And I think it's a little bit of a shame, which is why I asked you the question as a professional athlete. How do you make sure that you're not overdoing it? And so you've given, by kind of encouraging people to check in with their real personal motivational driver's checklist, so to speak, they can keep themselves in check.
Yeah, I have tangible steps as well. That was the spiritual inner guide. I avoid the 5 steps 2x because we're so bespoke. Every person's unique. So at the end of the day, you know yourself better than anyone in the whole wide world, or even the whole wild world. Who knows? So for me to think I know what you need better is arrogant. So listening to yourself is first and foremost, knowing our inner purpose and drive. My actions could be identical on different days, but very differently motivated. But for when I don't get attached to the to-do list, I remind myself that, you know, I have a long list of always, it's never complete. And if I miss one or two, there will always be a tomorrow. So I focus on that, and the same for training. So in sport, I do my best to turn up every day. I don't feed my I don't feel like it, because I never feel like it. I don't feel like sitting on a bicycle for 4 hours. I can tell you that that is not a feeling I like, sweating and, you know, indoors. But I remind myself why I'm doing this, that I'm striving to be better and not give in to the comfort zone. So one step is to honor the journey as close as possible, what we commit to, so that element of integrity, but also let it go. It doesn't matter what we do or don't do, it's that we turn up. So how we turn up is more important. How we let go what we haven't done is more important than actually pushing through it and forcing an outcome. So do I do 100% of my training? No. Do I commit to trying? Yes. So I take every day as it is, and I learn from my mistakes, and I adapt tomorrow to be just a little bit more, not better, but wiser, more aware, knowing how I can turn up to be a better Kate, because that's all I want. I don't want to win anything or beat anyone except being me, a better me. So that's what sort of drives me, and hopefully other people can take what I've learned and apply it to what they're aspiring for, whatever their mountain or Everest is.
And letting go is one of the key attitudes of mindfulness practice as well. It's like you have your intentions, and that's kind of where it stops. You put in the effort, but you let go of certain outcomes, for they are completely unpredictable.
Yeah, and sometimes it's me. I just badly timed or planned my day, and that I can learn from and make sure it happens less. It will happen again, but it'll happen less.
So one thing that I'm sitting with, and having built the rapport and energy that I think is quite beautiful. I'm going to ask you this. You said a few times, I just want to be a better Kate. I want to be a better Kate. Is there a level of like still not being, does that mean that you're on some level, you're not happy with where you are at the moment? Or is it just like, I want to keep exploring how I can be more of who I already am?
It's very insightful that you picked up on that, actually, because I was unaware of it. In full honesty,
Okay. Well, it was again expressed in and asked in with sincerity.
Yeah, and I always see that. So I'm more than happy to be transparent in my life, to make sure that this is what I'm here for, is for people to see what I do and learn as what we are, which is just a journey of expression and development. And you having highlighted that to me, I think there's something about me that thinks I need to improve something, or there's an element of incompleteness within myself. Where that is, I'll reflect on that myself. So yeah, I fully love myself, that I know, but I also think there is an inner drive in me of wanting to be seen or wanting to validate something. So that's something very new to me. So thank you so much, Christoph, for bringing that to my awareness. And it's interesting how our language just always tells the truth, isn't it?
Well, it was just it was too out there for me to not reflect it back, I suppose, because it didn't sit right with me. Having studied your profile, and through our previous conversations, and then today, it's like you're so, what I feel, and I know this is kind of public, but we are public people. It's so genuine, it's so pure, it's so authentic. And then you say, I want to be a better, and I'm like, how does that square up? It is pure and beautiful. So I was thinking, does she mean this, but on an even bigger scale? And so that's why I thought I'd ask the question, because I'm forever doing the same inner work. I have I have considerably less than other people in the personal development world, who have a huge global audience and so much bigger a platform, you name it, all the perks. But I'm really, really happy. And all I want is, how can I maintain and then perhaps even grow that? But I would never say I want to be a better version of myself, because I've done the work.
Yeah, very true. Maybe the word, I will still reflect on what element I see as needing to be better. Maybe the word that's more relevant is be a bigger version. So as you say, I'm very happy where I am, but there is something within me that wants a larger version of Kate Strong for the world to see a little bit more of, rather than the people I'm communicating and impacting today. So that might be an element of striving for greatness, for the greater size of it, that integrity is maintained as well.
And it's a natural journey of exploration, isn't it? Because we are always so keen. Well, I'm kind of speaking for myself now, but I assume it's going to be similar for you. Very keen to find out, to discover what's around the corner, what else is possible, what other options are there. So it's kind of it's a striving from the good kind of striving, I'd like to think.
Yeah, and as we know, tomorrow we have infinite amount of possibility. Nothing is set in stone, only by our own habits. So for me, sometimes I have that magpie effect of wanting all these shiny things, like I could do this, this, and this, and the wanting it all now clicks in, and forgetting that we have a lifetime to experience it. So there's no rush. Just enjoy today for where you are, because it's perfect to create the tomorrow you want as well.
My granddad used to say to me, when I was obviously a lot younger, he said, one day at a time. And that was his mantra. And he was so right. And he had a very, I'd like to say a successful life, and was a beautiful, beautiful person. And one day at a time. And because if you create a good day for yourself, and then you aim to do the same tomorrow and the day after that, you create a good life. So I think there's a lot of truth in there. So with regards to this massive next project of yours, are you looking to bring in the help from people who can support you? Is there anything you can share about that, please? And where can people find you? How do they reach out to you if they want to follow and support your journey?
Thank you, Christoph. Yeah, it's definitely not a challenge purely by myself. My partner, Kieran, has been a huge support. But I have a team of already 4 or 5 people, and it's the first month, it's 2 years away, to create, it's an operational mountain in itself, to make sure the training, the logistics, the everything is all lined up. And I'm also slow traveling to Nepal, which is really important to me, to make sure I get there. There's no rush to get there. I want to experience the journey as a whole. But what does that mean while traveling through Iran or Pakistan? So there's a lot of questions even about the travel aspect of it. So there's a lot of people in the team to help support me, and I know I can't do it without them. And for people who want to get connected, my website is katestrong.co. I'm very active on social, so Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, the usual suspects, and obviously YouTube as well. But so the next steps will be, knowing I can't do it all is for me not to know it all as well. So finding someone to manage the operations, the logistics, and for me just to focus about the cycle. How can I cycle 3,000 miles in 8 days? How can I swim 21 miles in 12 hours? And how can I summit Everest, having known I've just done all of that, and physically support myself through the adventure as well?
It's extraordinary. Honestly, I feel so privileged just being in your presence, although it being virtual. It's amazing.
We're all so I could feel your energy from here as well.
From the bottom of my Reiki heart and mindful heart, thank you so much, Kate, for this conversation today, for your honesty, for your authenticity, and for your energy. And I'm speaking on behalf of everyone who's watching and listening, we wish you all the very best with your next challenges. And on the next podcast, we're going to discuss how successful it all was, or not, which is a success in itself.
Yeah, it's all about the journey, not the
Absolutely.
destination.